Chris Hayes. Holy smokes.
Can you believe it? I'm still alive.
Well, I'll say it's been quite a journey to get you here.
Yes.
I know we've talked about this separately, but I don't know how many people I asked, do you know Chris Hayes? He's one of my favorite guitar players, has some of the best guitar parts of all time. And it was quite a journey. It was quite a journey to find you, but we did.
Yes, you did.
You're here. And man, I just can't be more grateful to have you sit down and talk to us.
I'm just happy that you want to talk to me. Because right now, I mean, when people ask me about what I do and this and that, I usually say, well, I used to be a rock star, but now I'm just Sarah and Ben's dad. So a lot of soccer games and all kinds of stuff. So.
I love it.
Oh, and Nick's dad too.
Yeah,
I got
don't forget Nick.
Yeah, and now I have 2 new ones. So now I have 5 kids. I've got 2 in-law kids.
Wow.
Yeah. So the family's getting bigger.
Yeah, the Hayes family is expanding.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Awesome.
It's pretty cool.
Well, we just heard a little bit of the song "Power of Love," and many people don't know that you not only were the guitar player, but you were involved in the writing of this song.
Yes, I wrote this song. I wrote the music for this song. Huey wrote the lyrics.
Okay.
Johnny ended up writing the keyboard part, that little bap, bap. Mm-hmm. So, and Johnny, we were all pretty precious about whatever it was we were doing. So I had to give Johnny a piece of it. But I didn't, Huey actually graciously gave him a piece of his. so I ended up with half the song. So that was cool.
Wow. And
Huey was nice about that because he said, really, you're going to give him 10% for that? And I'm like, well, he wants it. So,
yeah.
But Johnny's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not.
Yeah.
Johnny's fantastic.
Yeah.
But we did all kinds of horse trading back in those days. Because I wrote like part of Heart of Rock and Roll, and Johnny wrote all the horn stuff for I Want a New Drug. And he said, well, let's just trade percentages on that one. I went, okay, great. So he gave me all of I Want a New Drug. He wrote the horn part, so it wasn't like he wrote the song, but then and the part that I wrote of Heart of Rock and Roll was the end of the chorus. But I said, yeah, I don't care. But they both ended up being pretty big songs.
Absolutely.
Iconic Huey Lewis and the News songs. So no harm, no foul there. So.
Right, and for the viewers, we may get into some of those songs, get to hear a little of you play them as well. But so, can you kind of walk us through like what was this session like? Because was it pitched to you as like this is going to be for a movie, or was it just something that you guys had already worked on and then it just happened to work with Back to the Future?
Yeah, so we were at the record plant in Sausalito, and we were recording the album 4 with Stuck With You, and I can't remember all the songs, but anyway, we were recording that album, and they came to us and said, we're looking for a song for this movie, because what had happened previously, well, we could get into that later, the I Want a New Drug thing with Ray Parker.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit. But so they came to us and there was like a script, and they, we got this movie Back to the Future, and it's, it's, and we're looking at the movie and going, it's kind of cheesy, Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is going to work, but what the hell? So somebody wrote a song, I think it might've been Johnny, and we pitched that to him, and they didn't like it so much. So then and then they said, Hayes, take a crack at it. And so I went and took a shot at, I just played the guitar part on my couch in my pajamas, I'm pretty sure, And
is this the guitar that you actually used on the song?
Yes, this is the guitar that I used on the song. This is a 57 Stratocaster that I got for $1,200 back in the old days when guitars were only $1,200. I thought I was paying a way too much money for it back then, but it turns out
now you're vindicated.
Now I can't get them again, so I'm not out buying guitars. They're too expensive.
Right.
But they are pretty cool to have if you have a couple.
So you're on your couch, you're in your pajamas.
Yeah, I just, trying to find a good guitar part, because I was all about guitar parts. I wanted to get something rhythmy and kind of funky sounding and, so I just came up with that guitar part and went, okay, that's going to work.
Yeah.
And then I just threw together, the basic, pretty much the whole song because it's not brain surgery, it's not like it's some, amazing piece of music.
Except for that middle eight, man. I mean, you got like some Alan Holdsworth kind of like, chords going on in some of those.
Thanks. I mean, the middle eight thing was it's in C minor, but it's actually in the key of E major, right? Yeah. So I was resolving to the E flat major. I was resolving back to the major, which is the actual key that it's in, but the bulk of the song is in C minor, relative minor to E flat major. So I resolved it in the bridge to the E flat major, and then this chord here, that G chord, it's okay. The G chord is just a G chord with a D in the bass, so it's got a descending. It's like a. Oops, sorry, I like that chord. That E flat major, G with a D in the bass, C minor, F13. Because I like jazz stuff, and I had to fight a lot to get that chord in there, but they let me do it. And then A flat major, and then E flat with a third in the bass, but you're back to the home chord again, sort of, except with the third in the bass. And then this chord is an F minor 9, and then back to this third in the bass, and then A flat major 7, and then resolve to the C minor. Right. So,
wow.
So it was. It just kind of dropped in place. It was, I was just screwing around with chords, and that's kind of a gospel-y sort of thing. And then the couple chords that I threw in there were, I was always trying to add weird chords to the mix because I grew up playing with Liebman and Pee Wee Ellis, and a lot of jazz stuff. So I was always trying to inject that stuff in there, and they were always resisting. But
well, it worked in the context of the song for sure. It was pretty amazing that we were able to fit some of these jazz chords into a pop song.
I know, and it went to number one, which was amazing to me because I had no idea.
And this was also a Grammy winner, right?
Well, it was nominated for an Oscar.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's nominated for an Oscar as a part of the Back to the Future.
But I was beat out by Lionel Richie's Say You, Say Me.
Okay.
Lionel Richie is certainly a very nice man.
Yeah.
But I was like, are you kidding me? Really? Say You, Say Me? It sounds like a Paul McCartney song. I know. But, whatever. I mean, everything I write sounds like something else, too. And I wasn't mad, but it was like, God, that would have been cool to win that Oscar.
Yeah.
But I do have the nomination, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. We will get right back to the video with Chris Hayes, but before we do, I want to tell you about one of the sponsors that makes this episode possible. That is our friends over at Neural DSP. And for all the sounds that you're hearing today, it's all coming through the quad Cortex. And in fact, I've programmed with Chris some sounds to capture some of the essence of the classic Huey Lewis songs. We've got a dirty patch and a clean patch, and all of these have been voiced to match up with what we're hearing in the songs. And in fact, Chris has signed the very unit that I'm holding in my hand that we use today and will be available for giveaway. Please go to the website listed in the description and here on screen to register to win this unit for free. This is available within the USA. All you need to do is give us permission to send you emails, opt-in emails between us and Neural DSP, and that will automatically enter you to win. We will choose the winner 4 weeks after the video goes live. Now back to our interview with Chris. So can you tell me, like, with a session like this, like you were kind of getting into the story about how they pitched it to you. You wrote the music. Did you just bring it back to the band, or did you take it to the studio?
Yeah, in those days we just we would individually write stuff and either demo it up or just bring it in and play it, and then hash it out, bang it up, and
And so you submitted this demo to the movie studio.
Yeah, I ended up making a demo with Johnny, and which is when he added the keyboard part, which is pretty integral to the song. Actually, it's right in the intro.
Sure.
Bam, 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 bam. So that's the part
and
that
comes
Johnny
back in the
wrote.
chorus, right?
Yeah. So it's a pretty big part of the song. So that's why he's got writer's credit on it. But the rest of the song I wrote. I wrote the bridge and everything else. The bridge to me is the best part of the song.
Yeah.
And the guitar part is pretty cool.
Yeah.
The guitar part is sort of. But, I wish I could go back and redo all the guitar parts, because to me, they don't sound very good. Because our band, oddly, I mean, it wasn't really a guitar band. There was a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah.
It was kind of keyboard heavy and background vocal heavy.
Yeah.
And then lead vocals and drums were the most important thing,
Yeah.
and usually are, and rightfully so in pop music. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Well, unless you're a heavy metal band or something, but
So can you tell us, like, in terms of speaking of the guitar, we use this guitar. Do you remember gear wise what you used to get the sound? Because it sounds like there's doubled guitars. You've got this clean guitar happening, and then you have this sort of distorted guitar happening in the chorus and in the intro.
Yeah.
What were you using for that?
Well, oddly, I have. Ralph Arista was my guitar tech, and he was very meticulous about notes. I just got them from the office yesterday, so I didn't really have time to pore over them last night because there are a lot of them. I have them out in the car. Maybe when we take a break, I'll run out there and get them. We can look through them.
Yeah, that'd be great. And we can maybe insert some footage here.
I can tell you exactly what I use, but I can tell you probably what I used right now.
Okay.
I know that I'm pretty sure I used probably a Fender, like a Deluxe or something, on the rhythm parts. Mm-hmm. And
would that have been contemporary?
It would be like a 60s Deluxe, blackface.
Okay.
And then and a Strat. And then for the solo, I'm pretty sure I just had a Marshall with a 412 Marshall with a 50-watt head, probably.
Okay.
Cranked all the way up to 10. Pretty much in the studio, just ear bleed level.
And would that also have been for the solo, you think, as well?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, on the rhythm parts, it was probably dialed back a little bit, but it was probably a Marshall. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. And would it have been sort of like would have been contemporary for that time, like a JCM 800, or was it from the 70s or 60s?
No, it was just it was like probably contemporary from that time, because I didn't buy any vintage Marshall equipment. I didn't have anything.
So it's probably either like a JMP or a JCM 800, depending on.
Yeah. One thing that I did used to do is, you remember those little Marshall combos they had?
Yeah.
With the 112 in it?
Yeah.
I used to use those a lot with and run the 412 cabinet with that head.
Okay.
Because it's a little bit lower powered.
Got it.
It's not so loud, and it kind of gets a nice solo sound. So,
nice.
Nice. Do that a lot.
Well, we'll put a little insert of the notes on top of this to overlay what we're saying here if there are corrections.
I'm actually really interested in looking at those notes. I didn't have time to do it last night because I went out to dinner with my brothers and sisters, and I just didn't have time to pour over them. But Ralph Arista was great. I mean, he was my guitar tech for pretty much 17 years or something.
Yeah.
And he took meticulous notes.
That's great.
And they're all handwritten on legal pads, and it's pretty cool. I called him up and I said, "Hey, Ralph, do you happen to have those notes? Because I'm old and I can't remember what I was using back then. I remember some of it, but a lot of it I can't remember the details."
Yeah.
So I'm actually interested in going back in there and looking at that.
Okay.
So when we take a break,
we'll do that. And to get back to kind of like the formation of the song. So you brought the song to the band, the studio approved it, and then Huey presumably wrote the lyrics.
Yes, that's what we did. They wanted 2 songs. We got that. So Johnny and I demoed The Power of Love up, brought that in, and everybody was like, "Yeah, that's good. That's going to work." And they liked it.
Yeah.
I think they pitched it to them, and they said, "Yeah, that's great." So they liked the Power of Love version that I submitted. So. So we ended up, recording that. Mm-hmm. And then we also wrote, Sean Hopper wrote the other song, Back in Time. Mm-hmm. I wrote the bridge for it because I liked writing bridges. and he, a lot of times people that get stuck, you'd write a song and there's only two parts and you go, kind of needs another part. Yeah. And so I wrote the saxophone solo it's kind of gospel-y. Yeah. If you listen to it, it's sort of like a churchy kind of thing, So which I love. I mean, black gospel music is my favorite music. That and bebop, but but I can't play either of them very well. So. You look at me. So. Yeah. Yeah, but so he wrote that. I wrote the bridge for it, and that one was actually a smoking song. I mean, Back in Time is great. Yeah, and that ended up being they used that to when they ran the credits at the end. So yeah.
And do you remember kind of at the point where you were recording this, let's say with the band, and you're like, I think that this is going to be a hit? Like, did you have a sense that it was going to be a hit?
Not at all. No, I was even, I didn't even know the movie. I thought the movie was just going to be, on video in a couple of months. Oh, okay. You know what I mean? It was like, I was just thinking, really? This is about a guy who goes back in time and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Here's the song. Yeah. I mean, and then after, even when we cut it, it was like, yeah, that's pretty good. But it wasn't like, wow, this is going to be really huge. Yeah. We had no idea. And that happened a lot. I mean, with songs, you just really never know. You might write what you consider your opus and nobody gives a damn about it. So that happened a lot.
Seems to be a commonality with a lot of artists that their hit radar is really bad.
Yes. Well, musicians are musicians and record executives and people in production roles and things like that have a different outlook and sometimes can see things that certainly that musicians aren't going to see. And, musicians, we're all a bunch of crazy cats,
Right. So, Was there a moment with that song in particular that, either you heard it or there was something in the environment that it was like, wow, this song is really transcended?
Well, when I saw the movie and it turned out to be a really great movie and, Michael J. Fox is great, he's fantastic. And once I saw the movie and saw the song in the movie, I was, even then though, I was like, okay, that's great. Look at that. They played my song right in the beginning of the movie. Yeah. This is really cool. I was really sort of pumped. But I wasn't thinking, wow, this is definitely going to #1 on the Billboard charts. I had no idea. It ended up being our most popular song. Yeah. But I never really thought of it as that while I was writing it.
In your pajamas.
In my pajamas on the couch without an amp either. I mean, it was just just like this, I mean, I did most of my writing like that. I just never plugged an amp in or anything. I would just sit around and go, and noodle. It actually used to drive my family insane when I was growing up. Because they would be trying to watch television and I'd be in there noodling constantly. Yeah. It's like the old joke. How do you make a guitar player shut up? Right? You put sheet music in front of them.
Well, it sounds like you've got some jazz chops somewhere in there dormant. So you sound like you might have a little ability to read some sheet music.
I played with some amazing people in my early days when I was a teenager. And I was a jazz snob. I mean, all I wanted to do, I started out listening to Hendrix and, all kinds of stuff like that and Cream and all that. But then when I moved to San Francisco, I got into jazz. Yeah. Actually, I was introduced through a guy, I think it was pretty much through Steve Savage, the guy that is the director at Blue Bear. Mm-hmm. He's been there for 50 years. Mm-hmm. Great guy, drummer, and, he runs Blue Bear. So it's a great nonprofit music school. Bonnie's involved. My sister Bonnie's involved with them, and I'm a donor. And it's just they kind of saved my life because I was headed towards a bad place. And he kind of got me into the jazz thing. I mean, because he used to come over and we'd just spin Mingus and all kinds of stuff, and McCoy Tyner and Coltrane. Once I heard McCoy Tyner and John Coltrane and Miles Davis, it was like, this is my music. And so I kind of followed that path, which is, not exactly the path that you want to follow if you want to make a living, especially as a little white boy. So, but I was completely immersed in it. I mean, and we used to do these sessions where we'd get the fake book out and we'd just invite people over and play through jazz tunes. And that's how I learned how to play. I ended up playing with Merle Saunders, the organist that used to play with Jerry Garcia. He kind of took me under his wing and played with him, made my first album with him. And then after that, I ended up working with his son, Tony Saunders, and Dave Liebman, who's a saxophone player who's played with Miles. And he's like probably one of the best saxophone players on the planet. He's amazing. The guy's the best. He's like Coltrane level. I mean, the guy's really good. And he's a New Yorker. Mm-hmm. And he played with Miles, Chick Corea, Elvin Jones. I mean, he played with a lot of people, and then Pee Wee Ellis was the other guy that was in the band. He was a guy that played with James Brown. He wrote Cold Sweat. The guy was amazing, and he was pretty casual, really nice guy. We ended up being really close friends after the band disassembled, and I worked with him after that band was over for a few years, and we were playing gigs for like $40. Wow. But I just loved him. He was great. And it's just me, the little white boy from San Francisco, and Pee Wee Ellis from Georgia, it was like Mutt and Jeff. I mean, we came from two different worlds, but we just it was like we were brothers or something. Yeah. It was lovely. And he was a mentor of mine. And he took me under his wing and taught me a lot about playing funk, but also was a great jazz saxophone player as well. So that's kind of where I learned how to play music. Yeah. And we ended up touring with Esther Phillips and went on the road. Mark Isham came and played keyboards and played a little trumpet. It was cool. And Freddie Washington was the bass player. Oh, yeah. I mean, and he was like my age. He was 18. Yeah. And we're like kids. Yeah. Me and Freddie Washington, we're like little kids, and then we're playing with these old vets, and we went to Europe, and that's the first time I'd ever gone to Europe.
I think I connected you guys, right?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, good. I hope something came of that.
Yeah, he messaged me, and that was really nice. I mean, he's busy and stuff. Yeah. Because he actually has a job playing music. I don't play a lot of jobs anymore.
Well, we're making a job for you today, making a little work for you.
This isn't a job. This is fun. I like talking.
So how did you get involved with Huey? Because I think early on, or like kind of around the time you joined, they weren't even called Huey Lewis and the News yet. It was American Express, right? Like late 70s.
Well, that even happened a little bit later. They had a band called Monday Night Live that used to play at Uncle Charlie's. And it was like it was kind of like a little show band or something. They'd play funk music and stuff. They'd play like, Function at the Junction and stuff like that. It was like a clubby sort of showy, and they did some comedy stuff thrown in there. It was like a Saturday Night Live thing, except they called it Monday Night Live. I think that's what they were sort of emulating, was that sort of vibe in a club setting. And, it was pretty popular at Uncle Charlie's. And I was living, I was living next door to a pot dealer and in an apartment. And she came to me, and I used to watch her kid and give her kid piano lessons. Okay. And, in trade for, various substances. But she said, "Hey, I know this guy that's looking for a guitar player. Are you interested?" And at that point in my life, I had a VW that had no starter. I had to like park it on a hill so I could get it going. But it would run. It's just I had to always park it on a hill, and it was all beat up, and I was playing in every band that asked me to play because I was trying to pay my rent. I mean, my rent was like $250 a month. I split it with my old pal, Don Moss, a bass player who's not with us anymore. But we were staying there, and she said, I know this guy that's looking for a guitar player. Do you want a gig? And I went, hell yeah, yeah, sure. Put me in touch. And so I got in touch with him. And back then I had like super long hair, and I played my guitar like this. I just kind of stared down at my fingers, and I was kind of like a hippie jazz guy. Had a hollow body 330.
Okay.
That fed back all the time if I turned it
with the P90s.
Yeah. So, I went to the tryout, and I guess Huey liked me for whatever reason, and he said, yeah, well, okay, we got some gigs. I think our first gig was at Perry's Deli.
Okay.
A party or something, right? And then we played some wedding. I mean, they were like casual gigs.
Okay.
And we drove together in the van with the equipment out to the gig, and we were chatting and stuff. And, we got to know each other, and, it was like, okay, this is kind of cool. I like these guys. And then they got the guys from Soundhole, Johnny Cola and Bill Gibson and Mario Cipollina. And then the other guy in the band was Sean Hopper from Clover. Yeah. So he kind of put those two bands together and then added the weirdo from San Francisco. That's so the weird jazz kid, And then slowly we sort of, became a band all the way, and started playing club gigs and stuff. And then we got a management deal with Bob Brown, who managed Pablo Cruz. And then once that happened, then I could afford to not have to take all the weddings and other casuals that I was doing at that time, like playing at the Velvet Turtle with Michelle Hendricks, who's great, by the way, and Chuck Scher, and was playing bass. And I think my brother was playing. Oh, no, it was Tommy Dollinger, I think, was playing drum. No, it was Jeff. Never mind.
Do you remember like when you guys first got a record deal and like what happened and kind of?
Well, yeah, it was weird. It was Bob was a real go-getter. He was a trader on the New York Stock Exchange, and then decided he didn't want to do that anymore. I think he was like market maker for IBM or something like that. It was like, but he was doing pretty well there. But he decided he didn't want to do that anymore and loved music. And found Pablo Cruz and got them a record deal. And, they had some success, and then I guess he was looking to expand his deal a little bit. And we got involved in him, signed a management contract. I can't remember what we were paid, but it was like, $300 a week or something, which was, peanuts. But it allowed me to not have to do any other gigs.
Yeah.
So then he just shopped around, we just made a demo, and he shopped it around to various record labels. And then finally Chrysalis said yes, which was a miracle. And then, and then we went down and made this record in LA at American Studios. Richie Podler, I don't think he's with us anymore, but he had this cool studio where they recorded "Let There Be Drums," and it was an old '60s studio with the white acoustic tiles with the holes in them, that whole thing. Yep. It was real funky, and Bill Schnee engineered it. Mm-hmm. Who was great. You work with everybody down in LA. Yeah. He's a studio sausage. So you work with everybody. He's a really good engineer. So. So and then we made that record. Every single song on it was way too fast. Yeah. I mean, we were just, small, a little bit of cocaine and and just young, I guess.
Right.
It wasn't like a lot of cocaine, though, just a little bit. But
a modest amount.
Just as much as the real estate agents were doing, it wasn't like you know what I mean. Everybody was doing that. All you had to do was go in the bathroom if you weren't holding. I mean, it was stupid. There was so much of it around. It was everywhere. Even your accountant was probably doing it back then. I mean, it was nuts. So anyway. The record, we made the record and it was pretty good, but we didn't have much of a success with it. I think we sold like 50,000 copies. Okay. But then we sort of got our foot in the door with them. And then our second record, we got a song written by Mutt Lange, Do You Believe in Love? Yeah. That one charted on Billboard charts, and it went to number 6. Yeah. Which is pretty good, top 10 on the Billboard charts. And I remember driving across the bridge and listening to KFRC, which was the Parallel 1 station at the time. Les Garland was the program manager there, who actually ended up founding MTV. But at that time, Les Garland, he took a shine to us, and they added us to the playlist, and it went to number 6. It was the Mutt Lange song, "Do You Believe in Love?" And I remember I was driving across the bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, in my beat up green VW that I still had to start by compression. And I'm driving across the bridge, and I hear the song on KFRC, and I'm like, wow. I think we actually did something. I think this is huge. It was a big deal. It was a big effing deal. Yeah. It was like, wow, I think I made it. I was like 22 or something, 23. I don't think I even had to shave back then. Right. It was pretty awesome, though, to hear your song on the radio.
You got some great fills, too, in there. Like, there's some really cool guitar fills that kind of are coming in between, like some of the pauses.
Yeah. There were some good songs on that record. Working for a Livin', which is the only song that I have it's been covered, like, by 5 different country artists. Yeah. I'm hoping that one of them will have a hit with it. Yeah. Someday. Yeah. Because it's a pretty, that's another song I wrote in my pajamas on the couch on the 330, with no amp. Right. So it's like, I would like to see that. That would be great if, Brad, you should do it. Yeah. Come on. Help a brother out. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, maybe next time you're in Nashville, you can go out there and, convince him.
Yeah. Brad was really nice. Because apparently he used to be a fan of Huey Lewis and the News. And he came to a show of ours in Wheeling, West Virginia. Yeah. Because he's from Wheeling, I think. Yeah. And he said, yeah, man, I went to that show. He invited me to go to the show. I made contact with him. And he said, yeah, come to a show. And his keyboard player, Kendall Marcy, was nice enough to get me some tickets. And so I went to the show, and he goes, come on back to the bus. And so go back to the bus, and I'm hanging out there with Brad Paisley and Kendall Marcy, and I think my wife was with me, and and he's just talking about, wow, man, I remember when I was a kid, you were really, one of my idols. I used to listen to your stuff all the time and everything, and I said, well, shit, I wish I'd known you were there. I would have given you backstage passes. Jokingly, of course, but yeah, he was really cool and really gracious and just a great guy and a wonderful guitar player.
For sure.
He is amazing. Yeah, the guy is just off the charts good.
It has a lot of chops that people don't know about. Like he's like a Steely Dan guy, and like he can. I think either read or saw an interview where he said that he like used to play like basically like Asia, like back to front, in cover bands.
That doesn't surprise me because he's got all kinds of chops that people don't realize he's got. Yeah. And he's a great chicken picker too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The guy can do anything. He's really good. Yeah. I don't know if he can play giant steps, but he doesn't have to.
Yeah,
he's Brad Paisley.
Doesn't need to.
Exactly. Well, he probably could though.
Yeah, he definitely could. We'll get right back to our interview with Chris Hayes. But before we do, I want to tell you about one of the sponsors that makes this episode possible. That's our friends over at Mogami. For all of you guitar players out there, you know that having a great quality cable can be a life-saving and tone-saving piece of gear. Mogami is one of those top brands made in Japan using Neutrik plugs as the 1/4-inch tips. Absolutely amazing quality. Love it. We used it today for all of our recordings with Chris Hayes in one of my favorite cables that's ever been made. And our friends at Mogami are giving away 5 free instrument leads, 10-foot straight to straight, shipped right to your door at no cost. All you need to do is follow us on Instagram, follow Mogami, and if Chris Hayes has a social media, you're going to follow him too. The combination of doing those 3 things and commenting in any of our posts that we do about this particular video on Instagram, that will automatically enter you to win. 14 days after the video goes live, we will announce those 5 winners and get these cables shipped directly to you. Only restriction is this is only available to customers within the USA. Now back to the interview with Chris. I want to move into another big hit. I mean, basically the whole catalog is just so full of them. But the song "I Want a New Drug" off of Sports, that was 1983. And as we alluded to earlier in our conversation, there is some tenuous details about this.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make you get into anything that's gonna be compromising for you or the band.
Well, I am under a
gag order,
an NDA.
Yeah.
But I think everybody knows what happened, so I don't think it's a big deal. And it was all resolved out of court. But what happened is Ivan Reitman, which is I think he's the guy that was the producer on that, right? On the Ghostbusters. Mm-hmm. So he came to us, and we were on the road at the time, so we were pretty busy.
Yeah.
But he came to us and said, "Hey, we want to use I Want a New Drug for our movie Ghostbusters."
Yeah.
And again, it was like, Ghostbusters? What the hell is that? Is that going to be any good? It's like, it was just kind of the same thing,
Yeah.
It's like, really? Ghostbusters? What's that about? But our manager, Bob Brown, said, I don't think we should do this because you guys are on a roll right now. And, I don't want to like dilute the brand by putting out a bunch of, stuff with projects of this and that and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean?
Right.
He was kind of being precious about it, which, I mean, I didn't care.
Right.
But because I thought, whatever anybody's throwing my way, I'll take that. But, but that was, and we were also very busy at the time.
Yeah.
But we had, A New Drug had already been recorded. So, but what ended up happening is Bob politely declined that offer. But I think what happened behind the scenes is, somebody went to Ray Parker and said, we need a song that sounds like this.
Yeah.
And then that's what happened.
Okay.
So, yeah. And, there are a lot of songs are derivative. So, I totally get it, but they didn't end up settling. So it all worked out. It was with CBS and, so they don't want to be bothered with any kind of lawsuit. So they just settled it all out of court. It was all for the good. And, So Ghostbusters, I love Ghostbusters now.
Yeah. All right.
Love it.
So,
and I love Ray Parker too. He's a great guitar player and a great guy. So I got no complaints about Ray. I think Ray's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, it's nevertheless, I Want a New Drug is an amazing song. It sounds like Strat to me, but do you remember what you used?
Yeah, I don't remember. I'd have to look at my notes on that, but I think it might have been like a Gibson Spirit or something.
Really?
Yeah, which I don't have any more Spirits anymore. I actually ended up selling them all, and I wish I'd never done that because it would have the Explorer headstock.
I remember seeing you use them on stage
the double
a lot.
cutaway, and it was a great guitar because it was light.
Yeah.
But it had the humbuckers. And it was just a great guitar. Apparently, it wasn't very popular.
Yeah.
But it was actually a really usable guitar because it was so light. And it wasn't like the Les Pauls are pretty heavy. If you start playing them every night, it's like, your shoulder just gets a sharp pain in it from the weight. So.
Now, with you as we talked about how you were the writer of some of these songs. This is also another one of those songs. That
I did write this one. Yeah. So, again, this was a song that I was on my couch and just went, that was it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the song.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
But it's that little riff, That was all it took. And then I kind of fashioned it after working for a living.
Yeah.
Which was also stupidly simple, I mean, it's, that's about as pedestrian as you can get as a guitar player. But I was writing pop music, so I had to, it had to be,
can't be too heady.
You don't want it to be too intricate or heady or harmonic or anything.
Yeah.
So, and it was just a guitar. That song was centered around that guitar riff pretty much,
Yeah.
And then the rest of it, we just kind of threw together. Everybody just got on it and started jamming on it. And I wrote all the, the bridge is it's not.
Yeah.
It's just power chords.
Yeah.
It's nothing to it. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering if we can get into playing a little bit of it and hear
we
a little
could
bit.
Try. I don't know if I can still play it, but I'll try.
All right.
Yeah.
drug. One that won't spill. One that don't cost too much.
This is great. I didn't have to play during this part. It was great.
I want a new drug. One that won't go away. One that won't keep me up all night. One that won't make me sleep all day. One that won't make me nervous. Wondering what to do. One that makes me feel like I feel when I'm with you. I'm alone with you. I'm alone with you, baby.
I mean, easy as pie.
Yeah.
Not a lot to it, but for some reason, it's a catchy little guitar riff.
You think that was a Gibson because it sounds so like chimey, like that rhythm part.
It might have been a Gibson. I'd have to look at the notes. I think we better dig those notes out.
Yeah.
But that might turn into a rabbit hole a little bit. You gotta be careful.
I think it's always good to compare. And
I have the notes on those.
Okay.
I Want a New Drug. Couple Days Off. I think I have the notes on Power of Love.
Okay.
So I got them in a box out there, and it's a stack of stuff.
And do you think it was the deluxe reverb for the Queen stuff? Or
I don't know. It might have been it could have been anything back then. It might have been a Roland jazz chorus.
Oh yeah,
could have been.
Yeah.
But it was probably more. Yeah, it was probably a Fender, a Fender amp of some kind. Probably.
When you would go live, what would you typically use when you would tour?
Well, I started out with a high watt in the very early days, and that quickly went away because they just, it's just too much. It's a rock.
Yeah.
You got to play them. You have to crank them up all the way for them to sound good, and they're so loud.
Yeah.
It's like having a 100-watt Marshall on stage. It's just, you can't get away from it.
Yeah.
So I ended up, early days, I think I was using 50-watt Marshall. And we used to put them in a box so that they weren't so loud. You just later when we had money for production, we just put them in a box. And, like a 50-watt Marshall with a 412 cabinet, and then a deluxe.
Yeah.
To play the rhythm parts.
Yeah.
And then.
And were you switching them on stage?
I was switching them, and I had my guitar tech switch them for me because I was running around so much. Because it was more important to Huey what we were doing on stage than it was what we were, the guitar switching and all that. So I just had him do all the switching for me.
Okay.
Which was great for me because it allowed me to run around on the stage and jump over monitors and stuff. I was very acrobatic.
Right.
I was all over the place, which is probably why my hip is so messed up right now. Because I used to jump off of risers and, everything. I would jump off of stuff this high and I was all over the place.
And were you using wireless then?
Yeah, using a 80 wireless.
All right.
So it was. Oh, actually, I did a lot of it with the chords.
Okay.
And a couple of times took a header. I remember I had hurt my back, and it was like while we were filming. I Want a New Drug video, and I wasn't able to be in parts of that video because I had hurt my back. I was laying on my back with a herniated disc. And the doctor back then, here's what they did. He gave me a tub of hydrocodone and a tub of Valium 10s and said, just lay on your back for 3 months. And then, that's what they did back then.
Wow.
And I mean, they don't do that now.
Right.
First of all, because you don't want to mix those two drugs, but for some reason they were doing it back then. Anyway, I laid on my back for like 2.5 months, and then I finally started getting a little bit better. But what actually made me get better was doing the exercise programs that I got into. I started lifting weights and doing back appropriate exercises. But anyway, so one night we were playing at Harpo's in Detroit after I had gotten a little bit better and was able to go and do gigs and stuff. And we're playing at Harpo's, and I had a 68 Les Paul Black Custom.
Yeah.
And I was still hardwired back then.
Yeah.
And I remember I jumped over a monitor and the cord got caught somewhere. And I had it looped around my guitar strap so it wouldn't pull out, right?
Yeah.
But it was looped around my guitar strap, and it wasn't going anywhere. But
Okay.
I went somewhere, and then I ended up falling flat on my face, and then I went, okay, I guess I'm going to have to stop taking the hydrocodone now. And,
Yeah.
But so that was kind of the beginning of my recovery. So that was good. But so I took some spills with the cords, and then we went wireless after that too.
Yeah.
So that helps a lot,
Yeah.
Although wireless things they can be a pain in the butt too.
Yeah.
But at least I was able to run around.
Well, those were early days of wireless too, so they had some challenges.
Yeah, exactly. But it was cool though. We did a lot of acrobatic kind of jumping around, trying to put on a show for the people,
And it looked like live you didn't use this guitar, but you had this kind of hot rodded late 60s Strat.
Yeah, I had a 60. So the guy that coincidentally, the guy that helped me with my back rehab was a doctor, Dr. Roger Minkow, and he had an outfit called Backworks or something like that. And so he had this guitar. He said, "Hey, I got this Stratocaster, and I never play it. Do you want it?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "How much do you want for it?" He goes, $500. I went, "Great." I get the guitar from him and I take it out, and it's like, it's never been played. It's brand new in the case, a 68 Stratocaster. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. I kind of set it aside for a while, but then I ended up, what I did with it was I put a Kahler tremolo system on it and swapped the pickups out for EMGs, which kind of gave me a little bit more of a full range so I could do some of the rock stuff with it. So I used that. That was kind of my workhorse for a long time.
Yeah.
Kind of like that Dan Huff guitar that you showed me.
Yeah.
With the EMGs in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, Dan Huff's amazing. He's so freaking good.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was kind of cool. I used that guitar a lot, but then I ended up pulling those EMGs out because I just kind of got tired of what they were sounding like because they weren't working for me. I know a lot of people love them, but I didn't really like them that much anymore. So I just ended up just putting Seymour Duncan Strat kit in there.
Okay.
So now it just sounds like a regular 68 Strat, but it's, it's modified. So it's not really a collector or anything, but I like it. It's a great guitar. And those Kahler systems are really good. I like them.
Do you remember when you guys first were really, getting radio play, you guys were first getting some money? Do you remember the first big splurge item that you ever bought? When you kind of got a big paycheck?
I do. Yeah. The first thing I bought was I decided that I needed a house and a car. So I bought a house in Petaluma. I bought a 3-bedroom, 4-bath house in Petaluma.
West or East Petaluma?
West Petaluma, right. Out on Jewett.
Okay. One of those Victorians?
No. It was on the northwest side, so it was out in that farmy ground out there.
Okay, so kind of between Katati,
kind of near the pumpkin patch.
Okay, got it. Got it. And the car
out
dealerships.
In that area, yeah. So I bought this house. It was a little over 1 acre, and the dirt was like sandy loam. You could dig down 6 feet, and it was all perfect sandy loam for gardening. It was amazing. I wish I still had that house because it's a great gardening house. Anyway, it was kind of a crappy stucco, suburban house. I bought that. I think it was $110,000 or something, which wasn't really. I mean, that was my first loan.
What year do you think this would have been?
That would have been 1984.
Okay. And
then I bought a BMW 325e.
Okay.
Because my Volkswagen, I had Volkswagen, then I finally had to get rid of the Volkswagen because I couldn't stand pushing it anymore. And they said, "Chris, you got to get a new car."
Yeah.
So I bought a Volvo from one of the techs that was working for us. And that thing ended up being a piece of crap. So but luckily I finally made some money and ended up with the BMW. that was my introduction to the first of a few German cars that I got into. You know, I went through some Porsche phases, and then I got off of all that and just bought a pickup because I finally got tired of. I got a few tickets, and it's like, what am I doing?
Yeah,
you know, this is dumb. Even though I loved the Porsches, you know, they were fun, but you can't really drive them anywhere.
Yeah,
unless you want to get expensive tickets. So I ended up buying a Dodge Dakota with a camper shell on it. And then I stopped getting tickets. So it's really good. But it was pretty fast though. It was chirpy at the when you put the pedal in it. It was pretty fun.
So, Chris, I want to move to the album 4 and the song Hip to Be Square, and another mega hit for you guys. Tell me about how this song came about. Was this one that you were also a writer on?
No, I didn't write this one. This was written by Bill Gibson, our drummer.
Okay.
Yeah, he wrote a few songs for us, you know, which is great. Because everybody was writing songs. Bill wrote a few for us. He wrote this one and Forest for the Trees and a couple others, some off the first album. Hearts Are Made to Be Broken, which is a great song that nobody's ever heard, but maybe someday somebody will, if they can slow the tempos down enough. But Bill was great. He would come in with these nice little gems, you know. Yeah. And he came up with this song for Hip to Be Square. I think Huey gave him the lyrics and then he just wrote the song.
Okay.
But there's some pretty cool guitar parts in it. But it's mostly like fleecy rhythm guitar parts. Okay. And then there's some big football crunch sounds. That, you know, most of it's pretty pedestrian though, guitar wise. Okay. But you know, it was a fun song and it was pretty good, you know. I think it charted okay. I don't think it was like a big Billboard hit or anything. I don't think it even went top 10, but it was a very popular song with the audiences and stuff.
You're saying for Hip to Be Square, this is you're talking about Hip to Be Square.
Yeah, I don't
know. I have here in my notes that it, the 4 was 3 times platinum. So I mean, it had to be one of your.
Well, it was, yeah. But 4 also had Happy to Be Stuck with You.
Yeah.
Stuck with You went number 1 on the Billboard charts, and I wrote that one. But
which has some great triads, and double stops.
That's a whole other thing. It's a pretty cool. It's actually I'll tell you who I borrowed that from when we get to it. But this one. Actually was also in a movie later. Yeah. And it was funny because I don't know if you've seen the movie American Psycho. Yep. But it's in that movie. And I don't know if you know about...
He's a big Huey Lewis in the news.
Yes. And have you read American Psycho? Because there's a whole chapter about me.
Really?
In the book, which is very weird. I was going to a therapist at the time, right? I was in recovery and you know, I had been going to therapy. But anyway... so he said, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you are mentioned in this book, American Psycho, by name. And there's a whole chapter in you about you and your music. And I Want a New Drug. And Whitney Houston is also mentioned in the same chapter, which is bizarre. I mean, you got to go back and read the book. The chapter. It's just weird that he talks about me and about Huey Lewis in the News and about how, because he was going through this thing where he was talking about 80s music and how much he loved it and everything. And then ended up, you know, murdering people while he was listening to the music and stuff. So it's very bizarre. And Huey was like kind of a little reluctant to let them use the song. Yeah. He let them use the song. And then I think he saw the movie and he was not a fan of those kinds of movies. So, but I mean, there's no harm in getting a song in a movie. Right. Never hurts, you know. It's been very, very good to me. So I didn't have a problem with it. But anyway, that's what happened with this song. And Bill wrote the song. It's a great tune and people loved it. We got the 49ers came, excuse me, 49ers came and did background vocals for us on this.
So did you guys have, it was, I guess, Joe Montana era,
We had Joe Montana, Dwight Clark,
the receiver.
Ronnie Lott. All right. Ricky Ellison. Okay. Oh man, it was freaking awesome, man. It was so good. Who else was there? Was Roger Craig there? I can't remember if he came. I don't know if he came or not, but it was great. It was so much fun having those guys hanging out. You know, they're just awesome.
Did this also have Tower of Power as horn section?
Yes, it did. And Tower of Power, you know, I was like a super Tower of Power fan. You know, when I was growing up, they were like one of my favorite bands because it was the East Bay funk, man. I mean, it was the stuff.
And whose choice was it to get them on that song?
Well, you know, we were looking to get some horns to go out on the road and stuff and to play on the record. And we just said, well, if you're going to get some horns, you might as well get Tower of Power. They're the best because they were great. You know, Doc and Mimi and Greg Adams and all those guys. I mean, Mick Gillette and, you know, it was... And Mark Russo was with him for a while. And, you know, we never had Lenny Pickett because he had already gone to Saturday Night Live.
Okay. When you were in the studio, was it tracked live as a band or were people kind of siloed? Or how would an ordinary session work for a Huey Lewis
so what
song?
we would do is we'd go in, basically what the idea was just to get a good drum sound. So that was first and foremost. So, you know, we spent a lot of time, you know, getting the drums in the room where we want them, getting the mics up and, you know, getting sounds on the drums because that's what it was all about. Yeah. And then we would all get together in the room with amps in other spots because we didn't want any bleeding on the microphones and any of that stuff. So everything was like all the keyboards and the amps were all out of the room. So the only extemporaneous noise that would be on the tracks would be any foot tapping or anything, you know, which is probably negligible, you know, so, so yeah, we would just track those all together like as a band, just so that Bill could have some feel, you know, like he was actually playing with people instead of just getting out there and hammering stuff out. So
in click tracks or no click tracks?
We would use click tracks for reference, but we you know, it's kind of hard to play to a click track, especially when you're playing with other human beings. Because things do drift a little bit. But we would get a reference tempo a lot of times and then just try to stick to it, you know.
Got it. And in terms of like processing, like on some of the songs we'll hear, you know, some chorus or some reverb or some delays. Was that stuff that you would use in terms of like pedals, or how was that sort of processing stuff added?
So all of the processing stuff, all of the recording was all dry signal with no effects on it, but I would monitor effects. So in other words, occasionally I would print a chorus, like just a boss chorus.
Are we talking about the little CE2 or the big one?
No, the little blue doodad. You used to use one of those.
Just a mono chorus.
Yeah, just a mono chorus. And then because we recorded all the guitars mono and then we double track them sometimes. You know, but most of the time they were just mono tracks.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to have you play a little bit of Hip to Be Square.
Okay, I think I might be able to do that. Let me see.
All right.
Sweetheart. Love that joke. That's it. Not much to it, really. But, kind of fleecy, sort of
it's amazing.
little, funk-based sort of.
I love it. I love it. And it's all the stuff is super purposeful. Like whenever I listen to your guitar parts, part of the reason that I appreciate it so much and revere what you do is like it's so deliberate for the song. It's not overdone, and it's that restraint is so difficult to program into yourself as a guitar player.
Yes, because there's a lot of other stuff in pop music besides guitars, and some guitar players are lucky enough to work in a band where it's a lot of guitar, and that's great. But our band wasn't really like that.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of the songs were a little bit more guitar oriented, So, but yeah, stuff like this, I mean, it's really just a supportive role.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to play something that's not going to get in the way.
Was the band pretty good at like self-correcting stuff like that? Like if they felt like things were kind of getting disproportional, like instrumentally? And
yeah, I mean, there were some arguments about it, but people, eventually it was pretty democratic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, you guys seem to have a really good run as far as being together. I'm curious. I heard Huey in an interview years ago say that he was really glad that the band didn't make it until he was much older. I know Huey's older than you by maybe 5 years or so.
Yeah, I think 6 years. Yeah.
And said, he felt like kind of cutting his teeth in doing clubs and this sort of stuff instead of being like an 18-year-old that just had like a hit song. The dynamic was different, in that world of being a pro musician. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there are things that happened that I'm glad happened at the pace that they happened, because it's really easy to get yourself into trouble in when you have a success like that, especially with the money that comes and if you start believing what people tell you about yourself, because there are a lot of people that are going to tell you things.
Yeah.
But a lot of those lessons have to be learned along the way.
Yeah.
By whatever methods happen to you.
Yeah.
And then, actions have consequences.
Right.
So, we have to learn these things. And, I was glad that it happened at the pace that it happened for me. It was fine.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Because you were maybe in your late 20s or mid 20s when you guys.
When we finally were successful, I think I was, maybe 27.
Okay. And so Huey would have been almost in his mid 30s at that point.
So, I think he was 7 years older than I am. So, he was like 32, 33. So,
yeah. Well, that would have been kind of interesting if you're, let's say hosting an award show and you're paired with, like some sort of like 18 to 20-year-old as, Huey would have been the oldest guy in the room, presumably.
Yeah. I mean, by the time we got to like when we were doing those MTV Awards things and stuff, and the Grammy Awards and stuff, there were some people that were hanging out, like Madonna, was really a little younger than, but not by much, but we came up with some pretty interesting time. I mean, the 80s were, looking back on it now, I didn't feel like it at the time, but looking back on it now, it was sort of the golden age for pop artists in a lot of ways. The 70s and the 80s, the 90s not so much, because I don't know what happened in the 90s, but it seems to be a little bit of a lost era for me. But that's probably just because of my perspective. Yeah. Because I kind of stopped really watching it.
Yeah, well, I think for guitar, especially the '80s, is really interesting because the technology changes with in effects and processing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, guitar was kind of a driver of a lot of pop
Yes.
music, where it sort of subsided.
Yeah.
You know, certainly by the 2000s.
Yeah, but now I'm listening to modern country music. Sounds a lot like 80s rock.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it sounds like 38 Special.
We
man.
have Dan Huff to probably thank. For
I think
some
so,
of that,
because Dan Huff has really changed the face of country music for sure, and he's a great guitar player. A lot of people just don't know. Who I mean, people know who he is, but I mean, the guy he has single-handedly changed the face of country music on the guitar side of things,
and not often credited, because he would tell me if there's just like a part he needs a guitar on, he just grabs his guitar and just puts it on there.
Yeah, well, he's a producer now, so, but he's still a great guitar player. I mean, the guy can play anything he wants. So I mean, I don't even, if he hires a guitar player, it's probably just because he wants to give them work instead of, because he could do any of it. But he's probably as busy, producing records now. So,
well, I know we didn't have this on our pre-discussed sort of song selection, but because we kind of have a tone that's sort of like that, we were talking about "Happy to Be Stuck with You" a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm just kind of like, as a fan of the guitar tone, you had said that you have like a story about kind of where you got that from, because it kind of has like this double stop Hendrixy R&B kind of sound to it, really crystal clean.
Yeah.
What was the impetus for that?
The funny story about this, I mean, there are a couple of funny things about this song. So, we'd had some success, we were making the 4 album, but we were a little light on songs. And Bob Brown came to me and said, "Hayes, you need to write a hit." And I went, "Okay, I'll try." I mean, okay.
Go.
And he goes, "Yeah, it was weird." I mean, it was weird. Bob Brown was hilarious. He was, super Jewish guy from New York. I mean, just didn't pull any punches. But super lovable, wonderful human being, great guy, love him to death. Anyway, so he said, "Yeah, Hayes, we need a hit out of you." So I'm like, okay. So I went back to my house. I had one of those 12-track Akai decks. It was like,
this is in Petaluma?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're ridiculously terrible. But anyway, I had one of those because it was easy. So I still have all those tapes. I should probably get them transferred. Because there's some pretty cool stuff on it. But so I got myself a 6-pack of beer and a little bit of cocaine. And I went back to my house and I just started playing. And I was at that time
light beer though.
Yeah, light beer. Yeah, Coors Light.
Yeah.
And light cocaine. Didn't have any fentanyl in it.
Yeah.
They didn't have that back
then. They didn't have that. No.
Only in the emergency room.
Yeah.
No. So anyway, it wasn't like I was blasted out of my mind. I just needed a little something to get me going. So, so then I got my guitar out and back then I was a huge, and still am, a massive Donald Fagen fan.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, man. Donald Fagen to me is the cat's pajamas. I mean, the guitar player. I mean, I love Skunk Baxter. He's great. And obviously Larry Carlton is. And what's his name? Steve Kahn, right? I mean,
right. Or if you're talking about Night Flyer, because I think this may be where you're going with IGY and everything. But some of that's also Hugh McCracken.
Hugh McCracken is great. Yeah. I mean, those guys are just great.
Yeah.
They're just studio sausages, man. They play their asses off. So, and Carlton, he played with them. Carlton, I was a huge fan of Larry Carlton when I was coming up, so I just thought he could do no wrong. So anyway, I was completely enamored with IGY.
Yeah.
I thought that was the greatest tune of all time.
Yeah.
I was deep into that album.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all. And then I thought, I think I kind of want something that's kind of that vibe for this song, this pop song.
Yeah.
Stuck with you, happy. I don't even think we had the lyrics yet.
Yeah.
I don't think we did. It was just like, go write a hit.
Yeah.
So, and I've been listening to that a lot,
record this part here.
IGY and every single song on that record.
Yeah, it's a
Between the
masterpiece.
Raindrops.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many great songs on that record. It's just, Maxine.
Yeah.
It's off the charts amazing.
Yeah.
It's got, what's his name playing saxophone? Brecker. Michael Brecker's on it. Yeah. I mean, it's just so good.
Yeah.
It's such a great record.
Yeah.
It's probably one of my favorite records of all time.
Mine too.
Yeah. It's just so
Yeah.
Anyway, I loved IGY and it made me cry because, it's basically about disillusionment, what I mean? Which is kind of, what happens when you grow up and realize that everything that they've been telling us is not really true. And, it's partially true, but there's a lot of stuff that we don't hear. I mean, it's just, it's a little, growing up is hard.
Yeah.
When you make realizations about what's really happening on the planet. But whatever, it's still great. Go out and have fun. Don't stop looking at Facebook. Whatever. So anyway, so I thought that because that song, I like the vibe, and I just started playing guitar and just I mean, that was it.
Yeah.
It's just some stupid little guitar riff, But then I wanted to put some chords together. But that's basically what the song is just that, I mean. That's all it is. But then it's got some, it's got some chords in it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's got that modulation that takes it up a whole step, and that's where you get a little optimism, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what it was all about for me, is because it was sort of a sad but optimistically, sadly optimistic.
Right.
If there is I guess that's an oxymoron.
But even in like the verse, it sounds like you're doing some double stop kind of stuff, like on the lower strings.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff I wanted to do on that track, but I wasn't allowed to do it. It was just, it wasn't really. It would have been superfluous, I think.
Right.
But I would have loved to have done a lot more fleecings and different things on that track, because I really liked the song. Yeah. But I was ridiculed for that song by our bass player Mario.
Did you tell him?
He used to go when we were playing it, when we were tracking it. He go, "This old man, he played too. He played knick-knack on my shoe with a knick-knack." I mean, and it was like,
right?
Really, it's just a pop song. Get off my back,
Hell, he was.
But no, he was just having fun. No, I love Mario. Don't get me wrong. It was just, but he was relentless in his sarcasm about that song, because and I can't blame him, because I understand. It's just super poppy song. I mean, it's a little sappy. Yeah. But you know what? It went to #1, Mason. So I'm not complaining about it.
It's got a great clean tone. I had no idea though about the IGY. As soon as you were saying that, I was like, I know exactly what song he's talking about.
Well, I mean, it wasn't a direct theft, but it was definitely influenced by that record, because I was deep into Fagan then. It was just, that was my favorite record.
Yeah,
so.
we used to listen to a lot as kids. My parents were big Steely Dan fans, so we would listen to a lot of those. The Night Fly
the Night Flies. Also, so good.
Also, that song's good too.
And the thing about Fagan is the lyrics are just the best lyrics in the world. Yeah, you know what I mean? The guy can talk about anything. Right. Yeah, I think
he also just made the most that he could with like his vocal range, Yeah, like
absolutely.
He just you should talk to Frank Washington about him.
It wasn't afraid of going,
where he kind of gets Count Dracula-ish.
The guy is just fearless. It's great.
Ask Freddie.
I'll have to see if Freddie can give me some stories.
He'll give you some stories, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, I want to move into the song Heart and Soul.
So this song was like the song that propelled us. We had the hit with Do You Believe in Love, which is the Mutt Lange song, right? Because the record company was like, you guys need a hit on this record, on the second record. So we're going to have to get somebody else, because the stuff that we were writing was like, working for a living and all this stuff. And it was good, but it was like they wanted a hit. So Huey was buddies with Mutt Lange. They did a record together back in the Clover days. So,
Okay.
So Mutt has a million songs. I mean, the guy, he honestly probably has thousands of songs that nobody's ever heard that could be massive hits. I mean, he just doles them out when he feels like it, I mean, 'cause the guy's brilliant. He's really good and a great engineer and a great producer. Anyhow, he gave us, Do You Believe in Love? And that it went top 10. It went to number 6 on the Billboard charts. So that kind of got us in the door, sort of. So when we started making the third record, which was Sports, which ended up being our biggest record. But at the time the record company was like, it was getting a little snarky between us, and, things were, because we really wanted to maintain artistic control over things, but they were like, okay, we need another hit. We need a hit so that we can sell some records, you know? So they had a team back then that worked with Blondie and Pat Benatar, Nicky Chin and Mike Chapman. I don't know if you're familiar with those guys.
No.
Okay, so those two guys, they wrote like, "Oh Mickey," got it. The Tony Basil song. Yep. "Oh Mickey," "Hey Mickey," I mean, and I think they wrote a couple of those Pat Benatar songs, maybe too, like "Call Me," maybe or something. I don't really know, because I've never really done a deep dive on Mike Chapman and Chin. But they were super popular producers at the time and wrote some songs. So they wrote this song "Heart and Soul." And said, here, and the record company said, and also they were staff producers at Chrysalis. Okay, so the record company says, here, this is a song you should do. It just happens that they're staff producers at Chrysalis, and nothing to see here. But it was fine. So we'll do the song. Great, and we did it. We cut it. Made the rest of the record, which was odd and sort of a lot of different things on it. I Want a New Drug was on it. Which ended up being pretty good. It was number 1 on the AC charts. But at the time, we had no idea what was going to happen. We were just, and then they held off on the release of the record for like a year and a half after we were done with it.
For Sports?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we had to go out. We were out on the road. We were opening up for 38 Special. This is a good story. Okay. So we're opening up for 38 Special, and the album had just been released. And Heart and Soul was the lead single. It was the first single that came out, right? So when we started the tour, we were opening up for 38 Special. Great bunch of guys, by the way. Jeff Carlisi and all the, I mean, they're just great guys. Larry and, oh man, they were just super awesome guys. They're really nice. So we were opening up for them. And, when we first started the tour, it was like a month-long tour. We were playing all the basketball arenas. And we start out and, the audience didn't really know who we were. They were like, okay, these guys are okay. And they were, politely clapped for us. About halfway through the tour, Heart and Soul had come out and it was going up in the charts, and it had already gotten into the top 20. By the end of the tour, they knew who we were because it might have even been number 1 by then.
Wow.
I mean, it was really pretty quick that happened. It was like within a 3-week period. And by the end of the tour, people were actually singing along to the song and standing up and clapping for us and asking for encores and stuff, So it was wild. It went from being nobody knew who the hell we were to, at the end of the tour, a month later, people were standing up and clapping and going berserk. It was really weird. It happened really quickly at that time. Of course, we had spent 4 years doing clubs before that. So, it wasn't like it happened overnight. But that particular part of it kind of happened overnight. And then we went back. The song went to number 1. It was on the number 1 position for 3 or 4 weeks or something at number 1. And then we were huge at that point, Then we went out and did the same tour that we were opening for 3 Days Special. We did all the same venues, except we were the headliner.
Who was opening for you?
Shoot, I can't even remember who was opening for us back then. Shoot, it might have been, I have to look back and find out. It was I can't remember who it was. Could have been any number of people. We had a bunch of great openers.
Oh,
Stevie Ray Vaughan was one, but that was a little early for him. That was a little bit later. Stevie Ray Vaughan was great. He toured with us for like a year.
Wow.
It was like every night. It was like a guitar lesson for me. So.
Can you tell us a Stevie Ray Vaughan story before we go into playing?
Sure, yeah. I love Stevie Ray Vaughan. I miss
story.
him dearly. He was the greatest. The guy, first of all, he's strong as an ox. Guy was, had the hands of an ironsmith. The guy was, the guy was so strong that he would crush your hand when he shook your hand. It hurt every time he shook my hand. But, the guy was super strong and really wiry and, muscular and just a great guy. He was fond of the Crown Royal at the time and some other things probably. But, one night, about halfway through the tour, he said, "Hey, Chris, come on the bus with me. I want to hang out." I went, "Great. I get to go hang out with Stevie Ray Vaughan. This is freaking awesome." So he kicks all the other guys in the band off the bus and makes them ride on the crew bus. Yeah. And it's just me and Stevie on the bus with a bottle of Crown Royal. And we just wrapped it down and drank that whole bottle of Crown Royal. Of course, he could handle it. I think I was sick as a dog in the morning because, it's not the safest thing to drink. But man, it was such a great time for me because he was kind of one of my heroes, because he was way into Hendrix and I was way into Hendrix back in the old days. And, and I just loved everything about him. He had great tone. It was all in his hands, man. Yeah. It was like, really didn't matter what equipment he was playing. It was all in his hands. I mean, he did play a vibroverb, He had that 63 vibroverb or 64 vibroverb or something, right? Which is an amazing amp. I mean, one of the best amps. I have an older vibroverb, like a brown Tolex one, and that's a pretty good amp too. Yeah, the Vibrolux reverb. But he had that black face vibroverb, and he would play that, and it just sounded amazing. Yeah, he was so good. Yeah, so good. But that night on the bus with him, that was life changing for me. It was.
Did you ever play one of his guitars?
Yeah, I couldn't play him. He had like 12s on the top. Yeah. I couldn't hardly bend it. It was like a G string, I was like, how do you do that, man? He was just so strong. And and he was hammering the guitar. Yeah. He was just killing it, Wow. I could barely play his guitar. Wow. Barely play it. It was, and these lower strings were super, they were probably, I don't know, 60s or something. I mean, it was crazy.
I'm sure he had to just refret his guitar all the time because of just how much abuse it was taking.
It was taking a lot of abuse. And he had that Strat with the SRB on it, I can't remember what year that was. It was probably like a mid-60s or something.
Yeah, I think it was sort of like a bastardized sort of thing where it had like a 59 body and a something other ear neck or something.
Yeah, it was something like that. Because, the thing about Strats that's cool is you could just take the neck off and bolt another one back on. Yeah. You can hardly break them.
The genius of Leo Fender.
Yeah. I mean, it's a whole different thing. Because the Gibsons, I mean, shoot, I had a Gibson that I was on the road with, and one of the light techs knocked it over by accident and just put it back on the stand and didn't say anything. And I go to play my guitar, and it's like, the headstock's broken. Like, what the hell happened here? Who did this? And then finally we got it out of him, Yeah. But that was when I had to go.
After some low-grade electrolysis.
Yeah. Exactly. He finally caught to it. He was with us for another couple of weeks after that, I think. And then I didn't care. It was like, I was upset about it at the time, but it wasn't a big deal. I ended up buying a black 68 custom Les Paul in New York. We were in upstate New York when it happened. Okay. So I went to some guitar shop in like Rochester or something. Okay. I can't even remember where.
Buffalo or something.
No, actually, I think it might have been in New York City. Okay. I went down to where all the guitar shops are down there and bought this 68 custom for like $1,500 or something. Yeah. It was, guitars were cheap back then. Yeah. we thought they were expensive, but they weren't.
Yeah.
Not compared to what they are now. So
Yeah.
I don't have that guitar anymore. That's another story that if I told you the story, maybe we'll tell it off camera because it involves some people that are still in the equipment business.
Okay. All right.
That I'm not very fond of.
Okay.
I'll tell you that story later.
All right. Well, maybe we should get into playing a little bit of Heart and Soul. And so there's like some of it is kind of like a jangly rhythm part.
Yeah,
and
kind of a Nile Rodgers-y kind of part, right?
Perfect.
Because Nile Rodgers is the greatest rhythm guitar player,
Yep,
arguably.
He's got that wrist has got to be insured,
He's got the thing, man.
Yeah.
He does. I mean, he's got great time, obviously, and he just comes up with these really cool little parts that are in the background.
Yeah.
You don't notice them until you do, and then you go, "Wow, that's cool."
And so much of it is DI'd, which is the other
right.
crazy
Oh yeah,
thing.
I know. You just plug into the board.
Yeah,
it's like through a Neve, preamp.
Yeah, and maybe 1176 or an LA2A or something like that.
Right.
And then it's got kind of like a heavier kind of, sounds more like a Les Paul and a Marshall kind of rock rhythm sound. So maybe we'll do both. Maybe we'll have you do a little of that and then bring in the Les Paul.
Again, these guitar parts are not brain surgery. They're really like real basic.
All right.
So like especially the crunch parts, they're just bar chords, It's mostly just for texture, know. But it was fun.
All right, well let's hear it.
All right. There wasn't much to this track. It was like just, Right. Something like that.
Yeah, she's hard and soul. She's hard and cold.
I used to play it like this live because I didn't want to go.
She's hard and soul.
And of course, that's triple track,
The one up there was harmonized, though, wasn't it?
Every night.
Yeah. And then that's it for that, pretty much. Yeah. There wasn't much to it, it was just, but it was fun,
Yeah.
So.
Would you be the one to initiate, or would Huey or somebody in the band say, yeah, like that needs to be harmonized, or that needs to be doubled, or
Well,
like
a lot of times, we doubled a lot of guitar tracks.
Yeah.
So, I had to be pretty precise with that. But doubling is interesting because it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Because if it's slightly imperfect, that's what gives it the
right.
effect.
It's almost like a modulation effect, kind of. Yeah.
I mean, you can't really. You're still going to get the doubling effect no matter what, because there's no way that both things will be perfectly identical unless you actually take the actual track and just print it over to the other track. But so we just did a lot of doubling on a lot of the rhythm parts, and then also did. Sorry about that. That's my daughter.
Don't tell her.
So so we did
doubling.
Yeah, a lot of doubling on especially the rhythm tracks and some of the crunch tracks.
Yeah.
Sometimes we double those.
Yeah.
because in mixing they like
Well,
to
like hard pan them or something like
yeah,
that.
just pan them.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that going on.
Yeah,
so.
well, it sounds incredible. And hopefully this Les Paul was okay.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's fine. I love Les Pauls. They're fun, but they're so darn heavy.
Yeah, this one's not too bad as far as Les Pauls go.
This is a good one. Yeah.
This is all thanks to the great Joe Riggio, who refinished and kind of restored this thing to its vintage glory.
To its glory, yeah. Joe Riggio, huh?
Yeah, Tacoma, Washington. I'll connect you. He's a good guy to know.
That'd be great, because I do have a couple of... I love Les Pauls.
Yeah.
I wish I had all the Les Pauls that I ever had, but I do have a couple. So it's okay. I've got one that I've had since I was 16 that I just love.
Yeah.
And it's not original anymore. It used to be a gold top. I stripped it down, took all the gold off of it, made it natural finish, sent it to an old buddy at Alembic and screwed up the whole thing. And, oh my God!
Well, it's got a story now.
It does have a story now, but now I have it. I got a guy up in Springfield, Oregon, who put a new neck on it for me. I can't remember his last name right now. Rick. Anyway, great guitar tech up there. He put a new neck on it for me, and now it's a player.
Yeah, awesome.
It's a great player. I like it. I actually put one of those stupid Bixby. Vibrato arms on it because I didn't want to mess around with the finish. I didn't want to drill into it, but not that it would matter at this point. But I just didn't want to go that way. But so I just threw that on there, and so it's now I really like playing it.
Nice,
it's fun. Yeah.
Well, I want to talk to you about a song that I wonder now if the sort of the structure of it would even work anymore. The song "If This Is It," that begins with a guitar solo, and and now people don't have the balls to do that. They don't have the balls to start with a guitar solo.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Like, was that always the concept of the song, or when it was written, it was like, well, we need something to kind of like bring in some guitar.
So that song was Johnny Cola's baby, and he would write songs and he would pour over them for a long time. I mean, he's into the craft.
Yeah,
he's like the antithesis of me. I just jot stuff down and then move on to the next thing. He's like, he'll take something and work on it for months.
Right.
So anyway, and it's a great song.
Right. It's got a little doo-wop kind of thing.
Yeah. There are a lot of elements in there that are really nice. And because of his perseverance and his dedication to working on things over and over again, he put together a great song. It's a really good song. I don't think that it was intended for it to be any sort of guitar thing, but it just ended up that I just played the guitar part and it ended up being the intro to the song.
Yeah.
I mean, I just played some stuff on it, and then I guess he liked it, and then because it could have been something else, but I guess they didn't really want to put saxophone on it,
right? So
it ended up being a guitar solo, and the intro is kind of a iconic sort of thing. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. So do you think it was originally when you played it that it was just done as like a guitar solo that would come later in the song, and they ended up saying like, oh, we're going to actually move this to the front?
No. I think we started out with it with the guitar intro like that. So it was definitely a thing, and then the video was really a cool video that we did down in Santa Cruz with Ed Grimes.
Right. Is this the one where Huey's like buried in the sand? On the boardwalk.
And I think that had a lot to do also with the whole, and it was on Sports, which is one of our bigger records, and it was the second single, I think, on Sports.
Yeah.
So, because we had the momentum going with Heart and Soul, If This Is It became, also a very big hit.
Yeah.
I don't know if it charted at number 1 or not, though, but it was definitely top 5, I think, Billboard. I'm not sure what happened with that one.
I think... Yeah, it was definitely it definitely charted.
It charted on the Billboard charts because it got a lot of airplay.
In MTV, I think it was also extremely popular because of the video.
The video made it super popular because of all the funny. Yeah, because we made funny videos back then, and MTV was in its prime.
Yeah,
and it was a great time.
Yeah.
To be in the music business, it was pretty much golden times because you had MTV was was huge in the promotion of music
Yeah.
and pop music. And if you were making good videos, you were going to have success with your music. That was what it had become.
Yeah.
Because people obviously still listen to the radio, and they still do to this day, but MTV had become the predominant promotion source for all the music.
Yeah.
And that was Les Garland out of San Francisco, KFRC, where we got our start.
Yeah.
It actually started MTV with a couple other guys. I'm not familiar with them, but I know about Les Garland. So,
well, do you remember much about what you used for like that intro part?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you really. I mean, it's probably a Marshall. I can look it up and see if we have it in the notes. I think it was probably a Marshall and a Les Paul.
Yeah.
And some chorusing probably, and some reverb.
Yeah.
And
do you think once it got into like the first verse that it was Strat then, or do you think it was still in the Les Paul?
Well, there wasn't, if you listen to it, there aren't a lot of guitar tracks in the verse. I don't think there are any. And I had to actually play something that wasn't on the record. I just, played like just basically what the keyboards were playing. I just doubled what he was doing because there wasn't really any room for, because it's really a lyric driven song.
You get a guitar solo though.
I do get a good guitar solo. And recently, so I have made a new friend, Paul Sidoti.
Who
plays
out
guitar with Taylor Swift. Right. And he got in touch with me when the guys did like Good Morning America or something, when they were promoting their last record that they were trying to get going. And he went to Huey and said, "Man, you got to get me Chris Hayes' number, man. I want to get in touch with him." So Huey gave him my number, and he texts me and says, "Hey, man, I'm a big fan, blah, blah, blah. I'm Taylor Swift's guitar player." And I'm like, "Is this for real?" And so I text him back, and we start texting back and forth. And then I said, "Yeah, well, when my son's living in Nashville, when I get to Nashville, we got to get together." Yeah. So I went down there, and he said, "Well, you got to come to a Taylor Swift show." Yeah. And I went, "Okay, I will." So anyway, he invites me and my wife and my daughter to this over there at the Bridgestone Arena.
Yeah, in Nashville. Okay.
In Nashville. Yeah. It was great.
I bet it was.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
And she puts on a great show.
Sure.
And Paul, turns out, is the greatest guy in the world. He's a sweetheart, and he's been a huge Huey Lewis and the News fan since he was a kid. Yeah. Which is, bless his heart. He's just awesome, So, and he ended up doing a version of "If This Is It" with, who Brian White is? No. Brian White is a singer that sang with Shania. Okay. Did a duet with Shania in the 90s. Okay. And it was a pretty big hit. Okay. And his son is a singer. Okay. And his son did a version of "If This Is It." I'll play it for you later. It's really good. Awesome. But it's modern, but it's also an homage to the song, because and then Paul plays a solo on it. Yeah. And it's my guitar solo, note for note.
Good.
I was like, man,
it's a great solo.
You could have made it a lot better because you're a lot better than I am, But he didn't. He just played it note for note. It was so cool.
So we're going to get to hear a little of the solo today, or do you want to?
I can try it. All right. I don't know what's going to happen.
All right. Well, let's call it up and let's see
if we can do it.
Yeah. You want to try the solo?
Sure, let's try it, see what happens. I might fall on my ass, but let's do it. Just say so.
I love it.
That's fine. Oh my Lord.
Perfect.
That's good. It's got a good mistake in the end.
It's all
I
right.
probably punched it.
Hey, you know what? Even when we were playing with Dan Huff and he said a lot of those like giant songs and stuff like that. He's like, a lot of that stuff is punched. He's like, there's no way I can like get
I
up here
can't do that. Yeah. Oh my Lord, have mercy.
You did great. Well, it's such a great solo.
Oh, thanks, man.
Well, Chris, we've covered a pretty extensive range of the hits. And when we were talking in preparation for the interview, you kind of talked about doing some songs that maybe didn't get as much in terms of the credit and the popularity of some of the songs we've covered. And I wanted to get into a few of those songs, one of which is the song Small World.
Yeah.
And that was a song that you wrote.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like, this is happening kind of after a lot of the big fanfare around the band. Was there a palpable difference in sort of the way that you guys would make music after kind of you had all received some success and had families presumably and were older? Did the dynamic of the band change at all as you guys kind of aged?
Well, yeah, things got, people got busy with their stuff and, all of us. And, but we were still working.
Yeah.
And we had another record to do, the fifth record, which was Small World. So that one ended up being, and I'm not sure what happened with that one. I think, because we did have one of the songs charted in the Billboard charts.
We went platinum.
Perfect World.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the record went platinum.
Yeah.
We sold 1 million units.
Yeah.
But it sort of, I think we just kind of went over, we kind of missed the where we were.
Yeah.
We went a little over the head there on the what people really wanted, I think. And we kind of missed it a little bit. It was a little bit less, there were guitar parts on it and there were some cool songs on it. But it had like Small World was like a funk song. Yeah. And it had Tower Power horns on it. Yeah. And we had Stan Getz. Wow. Came and played a saxophone solo on it. I mean, it's worth listening to. Yeah. But the thing is I don't think that the people really liked that direction that we were going in. And that was kind of the beginning of our slow decline, in popularity. Do
you think that had more to do with the type of music that you were making, or do you feel like just the tastes had changed, or both?
Well, I think that you could probably just keep doing, if you would just keep doing what people are attracted to you in the first place I think you can sort of maintain that for a time. But even acts like Bruce Springsteen, I mean, he waxes and wanes in terms of popularity as well. And at this point, it's all just dedicated fans.
Sure.
But if and in the case of our deal, I think it was kind of similar in that way. It's just that we had a time. And during that time, we were immensely popular, and then it just sort of slowed down. Yeah. And then it may have been what the product that we put out that could have had a lot to do with it. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I couldn't really tell you what it is. I don't think that people necessarily changed their tastes in music. I think it just sort of...
But in terms of what's being promoted, though, can also affect things.
Well, that's true.
Because MTV changed drastically. Yes. In the 90s when Nirvana and the grunge thing came, it was a much different departure from what you guys were doing.
I think you're right there. That's actually... I think you're right, because I think what was being popularized and what was being marketed and pushed by the record labels became different music. Right. And people were moving away from that. And it was sort of, Right.
I mean, you guys were like their parents' music, the kids'
Exactly. We were like old people music at that point, just about. So, because it's pretty capricious, the whole popular music thing is, it's kind of geared towards younger people. Until it's not, and then it becomes, and then you find yourself on the oldies station. Yeah. I mean, it happens before you know it, like right before your eyes. You're all of a sudden you're shopping and you hear your song on the Muzak, and then you go, "Wow, okay, I guess this is where I am now." I mean, to me, that was the pinnacle of success when you hear a Muzak version of your song. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Yeah. And then I always think, should I get that? Because I think I'd like to listen to that a couple of times and see what they did. I love music. versions of pop music. It's really cool what they do. Some of them are pretty good. Anyway, that's sort of the natural progression of music, I think, for popular people. And some people have more longevity, like somebody like John Mayer. I mean, he's got a very dedicated bass,
but he's also kind of reinvented himself a few times. And the Dead thing, I think, was really instrumental in bringing a whole new fan base.
He's got the best gig in the world.
Yeah.
Playing for the Dead.
Yeah.
I mean, I like I'm not a huge Dead fan, but I know a lot of people are. And I'm not a huge Dead fan, but I think what they're doing is a phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's something that's, it's got a lot of legs, obviously, and there are a lot of people that are super dedicated Deadheads. And him doing that gig is great for him because I'm sure that they pay him plenty of money, and it's a way for him to, keep doing what he's doing. And then he did take some real risks, though, in terms of how he reimagined himself.
Yeah, if you even think like early days, he was really he came up in that singer-songwriter acoustic thing.
Right.
And then kind of became the electric guitar guy.
Right, and he had that trio stuff.
Yeah. With Steve Jordan and Pino
Jordan. I mean, that stuff is amazing. And it's all like he covers all these Hendrix songs. I mean, that's really good stuff.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Yeah, it's really good. And then he had sort of a blues thing that he did for a minute there. And then but he was still doing pop music. Yeah. And he's also written some of the best pop songs, some of the most beautiful pop songs. Like Daughters has one of the greatest bridges of ever. Yeah. And I'm a bridge guy. Yeah. So, for me, it's like that bridge is so, it just makes me cry.
Yeah. He's an incredible artist. And, I wonder, do you have an opinion on like, what is it that has somebody have like, I'm thinking even sort of beyond the scope of John Mayer, like a U2 or a Sting, like they've had so many times where they've sort of reached like the zeitgeist of like popularity in multiple decades. Like, what do you think it is that has somebody be able to repeat that with dissimilar generations of people? Is it luck? I
don't know. I mean, maybe they're just more brilliant than some of the others. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, our band was never really like that. We were like a really good garage band, really. I mean, just sort of regular guys, you know what I mean? And we were lucky enough to have success. We weren't doing anything that had any deeper meaning if you listen to the lyrics, it's not like they're love songs. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's nothing else to it. It's not multi-dimensional. Yeah. A Sting song is a lot deeper thing. But I'm not sure that necessarily means, just because it means a lot and doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be wildly successful either. I mean, there are plenty of people that make great music and write amazing lyrics that are not successful. Yeah. So I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Yeah. I think it's just like, sometimes human beings just do things all at the same time. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, then they don't do something. And that's what happens. It's like sometimes we're like a hive, or a herd or something. Yeah. So.
Well, what do you remember about Small World?
Well, Small World was great. I actually wrote a bunch of songs on that record. I wrote almost half the record. Mm-hmm. And to me, it was fun. I was working with this guy, Jeff Palmer. And he had a demo studio right next door to our practice place. And I used to just go over there and hang out. And he would demo up the stuff that I was coming up with. Because I didn't really want to go home and record it at my house. Because it had gotten a little bit where I didn't really want to do that. So I ended up demoing a lot of stuff over at his place. And then we did Small World and a lot of those Small World songs. And then some of them were just guitar songs. I think there were a couple of ballads on there, I think, World to Me and stuff like that. But they were oddly all world-based, weren't they? There were like 3 or 4 world songs on there. Perfect World was the hit. Yeah. That was like top 5, I think, or something, or maybe top 10 on the Billboard charts, which sort of kept it up there a little bit. Yeah. But then Small World was just like a funk opus. I mean, it was there was a long version on the other side of the album, or there's 2 versions. There's the edited version, and then there's the other half of it on the other side of the album, which is the half with the Stan Getz solo and all that. And it was kind of like a a jazz funk thing.
Yeah.
It had some pretty cool chords in it and stuff, but it was very funky and it had tower power horns on it, and it was a little departure from what we were doing.
Yeah.
It was definitely not I know what I like.
Yeah.
It was funk. I mean, it was, because I'm a funk guy. I played a lot of gigs in Oakland.
Yeah.
And a lot of gigs in the city, and played with Pee Wee Ellis, man. I mean, that's I love that music. Funk is everything to me. So.
Yeah. And do you remember anything about gear wise what you would have used for this?
Yeah, I was probably using. I might have been. I think at that point I was using boogie stuff.
Like,
I had a boogie quad preamp.
Oh wow, so racked up.
I had a quad preamp, and then a couple of those 200-watt tube power amps.
Yeah. The simulclass.
Yeah, the simulclass, and then and then 412 cabinet.
Yeah.
That's how I was using all that stuff.
And were you using rack effects too?
Yeah, I was using like a Roland digital delay,
SDE
digital
3000.
reverb. The 3000.
And the SRV was the reverb.
Right. I had the SRV and the 3000, and then I had some, I can't even remember what brand it was, a little harmonizer, because I used to like harmonizer.
Like SPX90, a Yamaha, or a H3000, Eventide.
It wasn't an Eventide. I think it might have been a Yamaha, maybe.
The SPX90 was kind of a pretty common one.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
I think that's right. Yeah, SPX90. Yeah, that's what I had. It was just a little harmonizer. And I used to use that for the crunch sounds, because it adds a nice dimension to the crunch. If you just detune it slightly. It's
not quite a chorus, but it kind of gives you a little.
But it gives it a little body, and then you don't have to double it. It kind of is a nice effect. Use it a lot as Lukather.
Yeah.
If you listen to his crunch sounds, they're all harmonized.
Yeah.
I mean,
a lot of guys, also Dan Huff and another great studio musician, Michael Thompson, they would use.
Yeah, Michael Thompson. I did a project with him. I didn't, I don't know him that well, but I know he's really good.
Yeah. So he would use it in stereo, and he'd pitch one side like plus 11 and the other like plus or minus 11.
Right.
And get like this, kind of movement to it that way.
Yeah.
And was that, what was that Strat? Was that Les Paul, or do you remember what you were using? Or was it the Gibson?
Might have been the Spirit back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I used a lot of Spirit back then, and then and Strats. All the rhythm parts were all Strats.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All right.
I did almost all of the rhythm parts were done with Strats until I got into the later years when we were doing 4 chords and all, but that's all in the weeds, all that stuff.
Okay.
But because then I was using like vintage guitars and like 335s and stuff to try to get more authentic sort of like Motown kind of sound, and stuff like that. So,
Well, let's dial up the tones here, and we'll play through it.
Small world, small world. Now we can find one another like they do on TV, or we can help one another supposed to be. If we all give a little, it can really mean a lot. It's a small world, but it's the
I could play that all day. That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're definitely playing through some changes there.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of missed a couple of things, but it's been so long since I've played this, but now I want to re-record it and redo all the guitar tracks and have some fun. I can play this all day.
Yeah.
And the great thing is I can go back to my house and just and take some of the tracks and just play the solos again.
I love how like stringy this guitar though sounds really incredible. Like it's got that really stringy Strat thing. It's just like,
it does.
quintessential.
This thing is so
Strat.
it's just so playable. It's like, and it's not stock. It's not original. It's got new tuners. It's got the original pickups, but it's got new guts. And this is not original, but I have the other one. But it's just a great player.
Yeah.
And it feels good. It feels really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Even just playing it between kind of breaks here, it's pretty great guitar.
It's a super easy player. And it's, it's all scratched up, so I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
So that's good.
Well, I want to move to one more of the kind of later songs with you and Huey Lewis and the News, which is A Couple Days Off.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm curious, like at this point, and we talked about it before, like, the things were starting to kind of slow down as far as like, I think this one still went gold. So it was still like, wasn't, it was still successful in a commercial sense, but, kind of what was your headspace at this point in time? This is a couple of years later, right? This is early 90s.
Yeah. So this was like this was our last real studio record with with EMI. Because Chrysalis got sold to EMI.
Yeah.
So we were trying to. There were a couple of songs on it. We had like a Mutt Lange song again, "Hit Me Like a Hammer," that was supposed to be a big hit or something, but it wasn't. And by that time, they were like anti-guitar. All the radio stations were like, "We like that, but we'd like you to get it with no electric guitars on it, just acoustic guitars." And I'm like, I'm out. This sucks. You know what I mean? It's like, first of all, acoustic guitars are great for acoustic guitar players and cowboys, but I'm an electric guitar player, man. I mean, I'm just not that. Not my thing. But A Couple Days Off was like, to me, was like, I'm going to make me a Billy Cobham song. You know what I mean? I want to do something that's just more guitar oriented. And we had this producer, what was his name? He did all of Palmer stuff. Robert Palmer.
Yeah.
Addicted to Love and all that.
Yeah.
His name was Eric
Thorngren.
Thorngren, yeah. Thorngren, great guy.
Yeah.
Really cool. And he produced A Couple Days Off and Build Me Up. And you can tell because the drum sounds, we were doing it at Skywalker Ranch.
Okay.
So they have that giant room there that they use for orchestrating and stuff, They had John Williams in there and stuff doing soundtracks for all the Star Wars stuff, right? So they had this giant room, and we had the drums set up in there. And then after we were done getting the drum sounds, and Thorngren just got these gigantic drum sounds. They were huge and used the room a lot. And, it just sounded really good.
Yeah.
Really big. It sounded a lot like Robert Palmer.
Yeah.
So
those... reverby.
Exactly. Yeah. Really big room soundy drums, kind of a la, Zeppelin or something, almost like the way they did that stuff back in the days, at the old house.
Right. I think all that the Robert Palmer stuff was at Compass Point in the Bahamas.
In the Bahamas. Yeah. They need the proximity to their drug suppliers. So,
that was
just kidding. Sorry. No, but, so, and then of course, when we did the guitar solos, we got to put the Marshall out in the middle of the room and crank it up all the way, pretty much. So that was fun.
Yeah.
I think I was using probably an Explorer or the Spirit again. Those were fun days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you want to play a little?
Sure. Let's try it. What are we playing again?
We're playing A Couple Days Off.
Oh boy, this is going to be hard. I can't forget that. I was ready to play the whole solo.
I think we were
because it does this really cool riff in there. That's okay. I was ready to do this.
You didn't know you were getting the radio edit.
I got the radio edit, yeah. That's okay, though. Well, is that good?
Yeah, I think it sounded great.
I mean, I could just keep playing and playing because it's so much fun. Just being in a studio again and playing whatever the hell I want, whenever I want, is really fun.
Yeah, well, maybe this is encouraging. You need to get a studio, and wherever you end up next, maybe you'll be able to come here and do this anytime you want.
Well, recently I I wrote a song and I got all the tracks done and everything, and then I started soloing on it, and I think I took like 20 passes at it. I was just having so much fun, man. And I just went, okay, I can just keep doing this all day, or maybe I should go and trim the bushes out there. And I went out and trimmed it because it was so much fun. But I had to cut it short because I would have just done it all day.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty and the power of music, man.
Yeah, music is definitely powerful. It's great.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, Chris, I can't thank you enough for coming here and sharing the stories. And man, it's been, as I said, quite a journey to get us in the same room together. But I'm just so grateful, and thank you for everything you've done for music.
Oh, thank you.
And just really shaped the way that we hear it. Like it's as I said before, putting in playing over changes over a solo, the way that you sort of masterfully decided on whatever chords those were for your middle eighths for those bridges.
Yeah.
You really have some really amazing things that you've done, and just your taste and sensibility is all over the 80s pop music sort of songs that we all know and love. So I'm just so grateful to you, and just can't appreciate enough for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it because, I spend most of my time just doing kind of mundane stuff now, but it's really a joy to come in and talk to you and remember some of the old stories and stuff. It kind of sparks the memory, and you start thinking about stuff, and it's great. It's been really fun, and I'm really thankful that you invited me over to communicate with everybody.
Yeah, my pleasure. My absolute pleasure. Thank you again so much. And you sounded great. I'm glad that we got you to dust off some of the old cobwebs from 40 years ago.
Yeah, now I feel like I need to go home and practice a little bit. So this is going to be good for me.
Yeah.
I'll play some guitar.
Nice.